Welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 253, we welcome special guest, Coach Richie. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here today in 818 studio with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, it is so good to be with you here at the start of a brand new week.
And today is an awesome day. We are always happy to welcome you into your week and to wish you well on your journey this week. I know many of you listen as you drive, some as you work, and we thank you for trusting us, with your spiritual journey. We have a very special guest that's with us today. Coach Richie is here. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Blessed that you guys have invited me on this show, so thank you for having me. And thank you to all the listeners for taking the time to listen.
I tell you, I'm so glad you said that. We're really blessed by our listeners, and we do have listeners now all over the world and, 100 plus countries. We're right around 200,000 downloads, and we feel very happy and fortunate to be able to bring messages of hope and growth and soul evolvement to our world, because what we know is people are waking up all around the world, and we're happy to be a part of that. We're happy to support the journey as we can. And Coach, I just learned the other day that a family, some are living here in Central Florida, some are up in Ohio, but I just found out recently a whole family is listening to us. A mom, her daughter, now her daughter's husband, and now the kids. So this is, we often hear about intergenerational trauma. Well, this is intergenerational healing. And I'm happy you're a part of it today with us, Coach. And Dave, of course, is super important in what we're doing as well. Not only his technical acumen, but his consciousness of growth too. So I'm happy to be with the guys, a couple guys I love and respect, on your journeys today. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Dave, what show are we on? I can't even remember.
This is show 253. It's good that April is wrapping up. This is the last Monday of April, and off we go.
All right. Well, and Coach, thank you for joining us. I want to jump right in because I've talked a little bit about, I don't know if you've heard the shows recently where I've talked a little bit about my work with you and the kids. And I wanted more people to hear from your perspective. Number one, what are you doing now? But I don't want to start there. I want to start with a little bit of your journey. Because when I met you, you were in a time of transition, and I've seen you grow, prosper, and evolve, which is, the three things I'm always talking about.
Right.
And I know you, I know your wife, I know your incredible son, who's also, all of them are growing, prospering, and evolving. So tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your journey and, how did you get to where you are now? I mean, this has been quite a spiritual journey for you.
Right. Dave and I were actually, we were just kind of talking about this in the, background pre-show, on, this journey, this transition, him with music, me with sports, with basketball. It's like you do something for your whole life, you form this identity. And then when I retired from basketball, it was, this was 2012, my son was born, and it was just, I was kind of lost. Like this, I had to take off this hat of being a hooper or a basketball player my whole life. And I was kind of lost and didn't know who I was at that time. Mm-hmm. And, it was a struggle, it was a transition, kind of led me down a dark road, but a road I needed to go through to find the light. Yeah. And that light was you and, CCU at the time. And that really helped me. I mean, you were definitely a guide for me to help me get back on. And so where I am now came out of that organization that I started, All Stars Are Bright. Started with everybody having that potential to shine, no matter, exactly. And definitely we focus on youth because, it's all about the progress they have achieved so far in life. So whatever, everybody's a star, everybody's shining. Some stars seem brighter than others because of their distance from us. And I guess for me personally, and that's where that name came about is I thought going through that dark transition period of being lost and not knowing who I was and what I was going to do after basketball, I thought that I wasn't shining, but I was able to still find a way to shine and use my story and myself to be a light and a star for these youth that have now come through the program to help them, lead the way, so to speak. So that's kind of, how we got there with that. Just me personally, in my journey, and I'm still growing. Progress, not perfection.
Oh,
Every day.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and when I first met you, I didn't have a question if you were a basketball player because you're about 7 feet tall. I don't know what your actual height is, but
6'11",
6'11". Well, and the thing is, you did have quite a career. I mean, you traveled all around the world playing basketball, and I do imagine that it was a part of your identity, from the time where you were a kid, right? I mean, or teenager at least, right? When did you start playing basketball? How old were you?
Sports has been a part of my life. You start with baseball, Pee Wee baseball, when you're like, what? I'm how many years old, and that goes on. I started really started taking basketball seriously, like in high school. Really started taking it seriously. I go back and I think about it. I actually gave up music to take basketball seriously because I gave up the saxophone. Stopped band. Really lock in on basketball, which I wish I would have still been playing the saxophone. And maybe me and Dave could get together and jam sometime,
Yeah.
But yeah, really in high school is where I locked in and really realized that I had a talent for it that could take me to the next level. I kind of started focusing just on basketball at that point.
Mm-hmm. And where go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I had a quick question. When you're 6'11", was it just assumed? Like nobody looks at me and goes, "You're going to be a drummer. Whatever you're going to do, you just work it out. You're going to be a drummer." Nobody says that. I don't look like a drummer, but when you're 6'11", I imagine it gets a lot of expectations kind of put on you.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened with my high school coach. I went through this growth spurt. So I was playing other sports in high school, but kind of later in my years in high school, my high school coach literally came up, grabbed me and said, "You're going to play basketball."
Like you didn't have a choice.
Exactly. So that's kind of how it came about, really.
Mm-hmm. And then
I did have a wrestling coach come at me because, in high school, I was probably like 260 or so. I was 6'2", 260. I was a big boy. And so he came at me pretty aggressively, but it was the same time as band. Like wrestling was the same time. So I did opt towards the musician route. But yeah.
So you had focused more on the music and kind of gave up the sports, and I gave up the music, focused more.
Yeah. Divergent paths.
Both had our journey.
I imagine if I was 6'11" as well, I would probably the coach might have been a little bit more aggressive.
Well, Dave, the other thing though, I was thinking as you were saying that, even though early on, yes, you chose music, you've done a lot with your health and your exercise. I mean, you do a lot now with your physical body that, say, 4 or 5 years ago you weren't doing, though, right?
No, like cycling and even rollerblading and walking and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, Coach, I think it's time to pick back up the saxophone.
There you go. Yeah, heck yeah.
Right.
Never too old.
Well, and the only reason I was, asking you that, because I wanted to dig a little deeper into what you were saying, especially for our listeners, because we all have ways that we become known in the world. We're known to our families a certain way, and we even take on a certain identity. And that identity is often largely personality based. And what I mean by that is it's how we get approval. It's not bad. It's how we learn to make it in the world. One of the ways in our family, everybody was a musician. Another thing in our family is you worked hard. Well, those are good qualities, but they're also qualities that I nurtured because it was a way I got approval. And as I've grown and developed, I've realized that sometimes I don't need to do things for approval. I can do them because I love them, because I'm guided to do them, because it's a stretch for me. And Coach, some of the things you said about, coming through this time of being a professional player. You were traveling the world. You were known as a professional basketball player. There's a lot of wonderful, not only approval, I would imagine financial. I would imagine a lot of, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but this was good for the ego, right? You were in great shape. You were traveling the world. So it was a way to feel good about yourself. And there was nothing wrong with that. But as you switched gears, you had to find a new identity, right? And many of you know one of my favorite movies is The Matrix. And there's a scene in that very first movie where Neo, goes through his transformation experience. But then he has this experience where he has what is called, what Morpheus calls that residual self-image, right? And I think that's something you spoke to, is that part of your transition was learning you were not only a basketball player,
Exactly.
You were a soul. You were ready to grow and you were ready to evolve into a new way of being. And part of that time is losing that original identification. And I wanted to speak to that because a lot of people right now are reinventing themselves, right? When COVID hit, that first year, I called that the year of the pivot. Everybody was figuring out how to make life work in a new way. Well, some of us are still in that. I'm still in that myself. Dave has been through that process and is in that process as well. So I'm glad you spoke to it. And, when you talked about a dark time, I wondered if you'd be willing. I don't share any more than you feel comfortable sharing, but what were some of the feelings that you went through during that time? Like, was it loss? Was it grief? Was it not knowing what to do? To give us an idea of how that felt.
Well, it was all of those things. There was a lot of things that were going on in my life at the time, not just the finding out who I am outside of being a hooper with this, that phase of my life being over, but I also became a father at the same time. My son was born. So, I came home. Actually, I was playing overseas. I came home. A couple weeks later, my son was born. So there's anxiety of dealing with that. A couple weeks later, my dad died. You mentioned grief. So I was going through a whole lot of transitions, dealing with a lot of things that I just unfortunately didn't handle really well, So, and a lot of times when we're dealing with things, we kind of turn to coping mechanism that when we haven't really mastered the tools, we turn to coping mechanisms that we're not quite, that are familiar to us. And so that's, I think what led me down that dark road is just, resorting to habits that, weren't healthy for me and weren't things that were productive. Thankfully, I came out of that on the other side and had to, really learn the tools and follow the steps that would allow me to be sitting where I am here today.
Absolutely. Well, I think anybody who would know you now would say you're a success story. Nobody would question that. And the reason I asked you to dip into that a little bit is I think sometimes when we're on the spiritual journey, and I can say this for my own journey, it's easy to feel like we're alone and that no one else is going through it, that no one else understands. And what I'm seeing in our world right now, the suicide rates are up, addiction rates are high. And people are feeling more disconnected now than ever, even though we have more ways of connecting virtually than ever, right? And so my hope is that this show continues to help people give them a hand up a little bit and to realize that there is hope, even if they're going through a dark time. And I've been there myself. And when you're going through the dark time, you don't always know there's light at the end. All you can see is what's in front of you and what you don't know. And I wanted you to speak to that because you did rise up and out of that. And you chose to rise up and out of that, right? Nobody did the work for you. You had support, right? Like you say, you had your spiritual community. You had me supporting you. You had the support of loved ones, I'm sure. But it was you who decided you wanted to heal. It was you who decided, I've got to have a new way of doing things.
And it's interesting that you mentioned like the suicide rate is up, because that was the first thought. I mean, the point that I was at, that was the first thought that came into my mind before I actually made the decision that I had to seek out some help. And it's and I hope that listeners out there, or whoever's whoever, like, you don't have to get to that point, because luckily I was able to make that decision. Okay, I need to get some help, and not take that actual decision, because we wouldn't be here if I'd actually made that decision. But I did get to a very, very low point in my life where that thought crossed my mind, and I realized, like, I really, really have to reach out, and I have to get some help with this. And it's unfortunate we sometimes get so low that we're unable to come out on the other side. And that's one of the reasons why I went into what I'm doing now, working with the youth in my organization, and also working with the youth here in my right now as a teacher, because I want to hope that we can reach the youth before, and help them with the tools before they get that low, because unfortunately some of us don't come out on the other side, and it's very unfortunate. But if there's anybody that's going through there, and I mean, it was very dark for me. I mean, I was I mean, just like it, I'm not embarrassed to say that I had that thought, because that's just the reality. I mean, but some of us do get that low, where we feel like we're alone, we feel like there is no way out, we feel like there is no hope. And it's to have this this medium, and so many others that are out there to exist, to provide that support to people. I mean, people really need to know that it's out there, and I'm glad that you're doing the work of providing that resource to people like myself, and that you were there at that time. So it's definitely a blessing now to be able to be here, and I hope in some way help someone else who may be feeling that low.
Absolutely. And I think what's so important for me to realize, and for us to realize, is we never know how our words of encouragement are going to lift somebody else up. And what I saw, when I was with the kids, with the All-Stars, right? That was who I was working with, right? Was the All-Stars. And when they were hearing that thoughts, belief, and actions create their world, and when they started encouraging each other, and they already were, I mean, I was just affirming what you were already doing with them, I saw their attitudes change in a few minutes, and kids supporting each other. And what I think, like, of course, honestly, at the time, I had no idea the impact I was making in your life, to be quite honest. So I'm thrilled to know it did help you. And I think you could say the same. You have no idea the impact you're making on these kids, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it so that that generation coming behind us does have hope for the future. And I think that is what you're giving the kids. You're also giving them an awesome life skill. You're also giving them the skills to work as a team, the skill to believe in their abilities, the skill to encourage themselves and somebody else, that you're teaching them life skills through the game of basketball. And that's what I think is really important. And I also think you called some amazing coaches to yourself as well. Like, if you want to lift up their names on the show and share it with them. I was so impressed with the quality of the individuals that you have called to yourself in these kids. They are amazing. Men, women, Black, white, Latino. I mean, everybody was about the kids, right?
Yes, we have an amazing group, and we'd be here all show to list them. But I mean, we have an amazing group of not just the coaches, but the admins, the parents who volunteer, everybody who supports the program. And one of the things about I think about teaching and coaching, it's one of our teachers said this out last week, and they said, you're a teacher, a coach, you're also a therapist, a nurse, a mentor, a parent, a counselor, a detective, interior decorator, event planner, leader, referee, comedian. Like, you wear all of these hats, and I really appreciate our coaches, our parents, teachers, anybody that's making a sacrifice to work
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
whether an actual volunteer position or paid position, because even if it's a paid position as a teacher, you're still vastly underpaid of what.
I mean,
Of
yeah,
what
let's
you
just
do.
be real.
So you're almost kind of still volunteering in a way.
It's
So
true.
it's amazing. So it's just, and I think that work is very important in what we do, because if we can make a difference and really try to help before people get to that point where we get so
Exactly.
lost
Yeah.
that we could
Yeah.
give them the tools to help them. I think that's very important, and that's what I try to do. I always tell everybody, listen, basketball is the hook. It's just the fishing line. It's the bait.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
just trying to use the sports to get them in, but really try to give them the lessons that can help them in the future. And if you can dedicate, if you can make the sacrifice to dedicate yourself to
Yeah.
try to pursue to become a good basketball player, or even with music, you make that dedication, you make that sacrifice. You learn to work with others. I mean, I imagine the teamwork that goes into being a part of a band is like everybody. You talk about being on the same page on the court. You got to
Yeah.
be on the same, literally be on
Literally.
the same page.
Yeah.
So like all of those things are things
Yeah.
that now they can take out into the world to be successful. And I definitely think my sports background, growing up in that, was able to help me when I was able to make that decision that, okay, I got to do
Yeah.
this. Okay, determination, the perseverance. You got to work
Exactly.
hard, because it's hard. It's hard when you're going through a dark time. You have to put in the work. You have to be willing to put in the work to do that. And that's something that um, obviously you guys can touch on. Is like on this journey. It's there's work that we have to do on this journey.
Oh, there most certainly is. I believe so strongly in, serving others and following your inner guidance. And I do all of those things. And yet every day I'm still learning. It's not like, okay, yeah, now I have a podcast that's around the world and I can just skate along and not have to work. The opposite is true. I'm working that much harder because I feel such responsibility to supporting souls around the world that I want to learn, I want to grow so that I can bring my growth to the people I'm serving. So yeah, the work never stops. The work never stops. And the piece that you touched on that I also wanted to lift up, because we were just at a show, I don't know, a couple months ago about serving others and loving others. And we said loving others really is service. And I want to just say that if you're going through a hard time, one of the best things you can do is be of service to others, because
Amen.
because it gets you out of yourself and out of your own worries. And you see, number one, there are other people that need too. You also see that number two, that you're worthy to give something. So it lifts you up to serve others. So if you have a skill, if you have an ability that you could pass on to the generation coming behind you, will be about that. And it helps take you out of the doldrums and out of your own darkness and move you into giving something. And so it's like it switches the energetic flow. And I want to pause to talk about this, because sometimes in our culture right now, we act like we are victims and that we have no life and we have no ability to stand for ourselves and stand for something. Even if somebody calls me a name, or even if somebody doesn't acknowledge some part of who I am, it doesn't change who I am. I have something to give. I am worthy to give, but I have to decide that is so, and so I really want to encourage all of our listeners to know there is something you have to give to the world. Your work is to figure out what that is, right? That I can't come into your home and pick you up and say, this is what's yours to do. That's our own individual work. But I know that when we take the time to be of service to others, our life is lifted. I absolutely know that 100%. And if you're helping kids, that much more, because you're passing along your knowledge, and you see, then they start where you are. I've seen this with my own son, his growth and development. He's so much further ahead than I was at his age, because he's starting where I am after 50 years of work on myself. Your son too. Look at his growth and his development and his positivity. He's probably never going to have to go through what you went through, because why? He's supported. He's loved, right? Because you take time. other adults take time and support him. He's on a trajectory up, and it is through people giving of themselves to him that's made that happen. Like we say we want our world to change. The way we change is giving to the generation that's coming behind us. I absolutely believe it 100%.
You're 100% right about that. And it's it's getting out of yourself, like you said, if you're in that space and going to help others, which is essentially 12-step work right there. I mean,
it is. It is.
and,
Yes.
passing it along and giving it forward. And I tell people this too. And it's like, even if you're not in that space of, okay, well, I'm trying to get out of my funk, but just period. Because I always say this, we live in this world. This world, we're all connected regardless. If you think that you could just stay in your little box and raise your family and raise your kids, eventually they're going to have to go out into that outside world.
They
So
are.
we need to affect that outside world in some way that our kids are going to grow up in. And I mean, so we have to we have a responsibility to leave this world better than we came into. We have a responsibility, as you said, to leave the world better for those behind us. And I think working with the youth is a great way, at least for me. And I knew that, sports was something that I had a gift for and being involved with you. So I'm just doing it in a way that I know how, but many other people could do it in the way that they know how. But yeah, definitely. That was the number one thing for me was I just went into schools and just started, hey, volunteering. I'm, just whatever, in whatever way, just to get out of myself and what I was going through. Just a way to, like you said, to give back. So I'm with you 100% on that.
So I think right now you're coaching or you're working at a school full time, as well as doing the All-Stars. And then the meeting I was in on with the coaches, and there was the businessman, I think his name is it Andrew Chang or something like that? And
Yes,
I really enjoyed meeting Andrew. And actually, we've texted quite a few times since the meeting. Real nice connection there. But because I really want to support your trip to Taiwan as well on the show. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, because I think you are working full time and doing the All-Stars and doing this big trip next year.
Yes, that is correct. So I work full time in the Osceola School District, as well as run All Stars Are Bright, and we're just getting ready to kick off. I mean, we do a number of programs. Just finished up this past week in our flag football program. We're getting started with our spring basketball program. Have a number of different camps and trainings, leagues, mentoring, tutoring programs that we do. But this is something that, with you mentioned Andrew Jang, we've been trying to get this international trip going since pre-COVID, and was kind of sidelined and derailed. And you were part of that initial meeting to get it going again. So that's something that we really want to do, because I think for me, I think a big part of my growth was also the diverse experiences I had, being able to travel the world and experience different cultures. And I think that's something that if we can expose our youth to that, to be able to meet people from different cultures, speak different language, see the different foods they eat, I think it just gives them a different perspective on life and different, value
totally
of
agree.
life to relate to others. So that's one of the things we want to try to use. And we talk about, using sports to teach life lessons, is using basketball as a way to bring different cultures together. So that's something that we have in the works that hopefully we can make happen.
Absolutely. I know our listeners love to support. I've had people on, and so tell our listeners how they can find you. What's your website? And we'll also put that in the show notes. If people are driving, they don't have to try to get it down right now. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Pretty website is allstarsabc.com. So it's pretty simple. www.allstars with an S, abc.com. They can go there if they want to support. There's a link on there if they want to give or support the program, the organization. There's a way that they can do that there. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so any support, any donations they give would be tax deductible. So that's
awesome.
Great benefit. It works both ways for everybody. So definitely, hopefully, if you're able to share that information with your listeners, www.allstarsabc.com. They can go right there to the web and reach out and get information about either if they want to support or want to join and be a part of any of the programs that we're doing as well. And if anybody, we talk about, giving and wanting to give back, we come out and volunteer. If you have a talent in any way, we'll find a way to put that talent to use to work with the kids and help them out.
Oh yeah, if you let me come, you'll support them.
We're waiting for you to come back. We're waiting for you to come back. They loved you. They loved you when you were there. Coaches, the kids, they asked about you, so we're waiting for you to come back.
Well, okay, as soon as we're off the air, we'll get another date on the books. Most definitely. I've had several new events myself. In addition, to my work at Unity North Tampa, I'm now also doing services once a month in Orlando at Orlando Center for Spiritual Living on Wednesday nights. And now I'm also at the end of March, we had in Daniel Namod in the evening. So I am doing a wide variety of things. And then I'm traveling as well. Next month, I'm going to be doing a lot of speaking in New York and Pennsylvania. So I've got a lot of speaking and traveling coming up. But I absolutely will make time. I think the last time we tried to figure it out, we couldn't. But I'm going to get something on the books. So, Coach Richie, thank you so much. All stars are bright, and we're so glad that you see this in the kids, that you're lifting it up. We're happy and honored to be a support of the work to be in support of the work you're doing and supporting the kids. And so, listeners, if you can be of support, even if it's just holding them in prayer, sending good healing energy that way, do that. If you can make a financial donation, do that. We're happy to have you give to Coach Richie's organization, All Stars Are Bright, because we believe in him, we believe in the work he's doing, and we believe in these kids, that they do have the light of God within them, that they are capable of way more than they ever imagined. They just need love and support to do it. So, Coach, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you, listeners. Blessings on the journey, dear friends. We'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.